Welcome, everyone, to The Explainer. Now, I want you to just think back for a second through the vast timeline of human history. For thousands of years, the rhythm of daily life barely changed at all. But then, almost overnight, in the grand scheme of things, everything transformed. Today, we're unpacking the most massive, transformative shift in human history since the very invention of agriculture, the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The Great Agrarian Shift. 2. Why Britain was first. 3. Engines of mass production. 4. The brutal human cost. 5. Backlash and new ideologies. And 6. The modern industrial legacy.
Starting right off with Section 1, the Great Agrarian Shift, muscle to machine.
Take a look at this definition right here on the slide. The Industrial Revolution, which spans roughly from the mid-18th to the mid-19th century, was this incredibly dramatic shift from an agrarian, handcraft economy. A world where absolutely everything was dominated by human or animal muscle. And we shift from that to an industrial economy. Suddenly, society is being driven by machine manufacturing, the immense power of steam, and the combustion of fossil fuels. We're talking about fundamentally altering how human beings generate power and produce the basic things they need to survive.
Let's move on to Section 2, why Britain was first, the catalyst.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why this monumental global transformation kicked off on one specific damp island in the North Atlantic. Well, looking at geography, Britain was sitting on massive, easily accessible deposits of coal and iron ore. Actually, early on, coal was so plentiful, they sometimes found it just washing up right on the beaches. They also had this extensive network of navigable rivers and canals, which made heavy transport totally viable. Then, economically, they had strong property and patent laws that actually rewarded inventors, a highly stable parliamentary government, and a huge capital surplus from global trade. But perhaps most crucially, and you can see this under agriculture, improved farming techniques and policies like the Enclosure Acts actually forced traditional workers off traditional farmland. This created a massive labor surplus. So suddenly you've got this vast population of people desperately needing work exactly when the new factories needed workers.
Which brings us to Section 3, engines of mass production powering the shift. Let's trace the rapid evolution of the technology that actually made all of this possible. Back in 1712, we have the Newcomen engine. Now, this was originally just built to pump water out of flooded coal mines. It was pretty rudimentary and wildly inefficient. But fast forward to the 1760s and 80s, and James Watt comes along. He dramatically increases the efficiency of the steam engine, and critically, he adds rotary motion. And this was a true game changer. It meant factories no longer had to be built right on riverbanks just to rely on water wheels. They could operate anywhere. So by the 1780s, we see rapid textile mechanization, and moving right into the 1800s, those exact same steam engines are put on wheels. This creates steam locomotives and iron railways that offered rapid, cheap transit for goods, building true global markets.
Just to drive home the staggering exponential scale of this, one single worker on a machine could now equal the output of an entire household. With inventions like the spinning jenny and the power loom, textile production didn't just increase a little bit, it scaled exponentially. Human muscles simply could not compete with the sheer volume and speed of this new mechanization.
Let's turn now to Section 4, the brutal human cost, life in the factory.
Now, what's really interesting, and frankly horrifying, about this slide is this number right here. 12 to 16. That was the length in hours of a standard factory workday, 6 days a week. For the very first time in human history, strict factory discipline was enforced by clocks rather than the natural daylight or the changing of the seasons. The machine never tired, so the worker was expected to never tire either.
And this led to some incredibly grim realities. Millions migrated from rural areas straight into industrial hubs like Manchester, Birmingham, and London. But these cities grew way too fast. This severe overcrowding led directly to extreme squalor and deadly diseases, like sweeping cholera outbreaks. Just to put that into perspective, during the Great Stink of 1858, the Thames River in London smelled so overwhelmingly of untreated sewage that Parliament literally had to soak their curtains in chloride of lime just to stay inside the building. On top of that, severe coal pollution constantly choked the air. And perhaps most tragically, we see the widespread exploitation of women and child labor. Children were forced to work in hazardous environments, doing everything from pulling heavy carts deep inside coal mines to navigating between unguarded, incredibly dangerous loom machinery.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds. Backlash and new ideologies. The reaction. So, keeping all that in mind, how did workers actually respond to these brutal conditions?
I mean, when you take away someone's livelihood or force them into dangerous, squalid labor, what is the historical reaction to that?
Well, one immediate historical cause and effect reaction was the rise of the Luddites. Between 1811 and 1816, these organized groups of textile workers began literally smashing automated machinery. But it's important to understand they weren't just blindly angry at technology. They were engaging in direct protest against falling wages and the massive job displacement that was being caused by those very machines.
But the backlash definitely went far beyond just breaking machines. These squalid conditions gave birth to deeply organized responses across society. We see the formation of early labor unions fighting for basic rights. We see the drafting of the very first child labor reform laws to protect the most vulnerable workers. And, fundamentally, these horrific factory conditions served as the crucible for new modern ideologies, notably the rise of socialist political philosophy. Thinkers like Karl Marx directly observed the extremes of British industrialism firsthand, and that objectively shaped his entire critique of the capitalist system.
Finally, Section 6, the modern industrial legacy, our world today. So the crucial point is really this double-edged sword. On the one hand, the Industrial Revolution unlocked massive global productivity, significantly raised long-term living standards, and absolutely laid the essential groundwork for modern medicine, technology, and transport. We live longer, far more connected lives because of it. But on the flip side, the cons are equally profound. It created severe structural wealth inequality, sparked urban humanitarian crises, and, crucially, it started the deep, global reliance on fossil fuels that is directly driving modern climate change today.
The Industrial Revolution created the modern world, for sure, but it also created our modern problems. As we confront climate change today, how will we manage the legacy of this fossil fuel-driven machine age? Can we build a new, sustainable revolution, or are we permanently tied to the engines of the past? It's definitely something to think about the very next time you turn on a light, get in a car, or buy a factory-made good. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.